My name is Logan Miller, and I have spent most of my adult life here in Prairie Creek, Oklahoma. I am 32 years old and I work in oilfield construction. It is honest work, hard on the body but rewarding in its own way, especially when you are part of a good crew. Our shop is a sprawling metal building, always humming with the sound of machinery and the smell of grease and welding fumes. It is a place where routines matter, where knowing your place and respecting your coworkers keeps things running smooth and safe. We have a general rule about music. Most people can never agree on what to listen to, so we keep 4 radios in each corner of the shop, all tuned to the same country station. It provides a steady background noise, something familiar and mostly tolerable for everyone. It is not perfect, but it is fair, and that is what matters in a place like ours. We are a tight-knit group, the regular employees, the welders and laborers who show up every day year after year. We look out for each other. One Tuesday morning, our calm routine got thrown into chaos. We had a specialized job come in, a big one, and that meant contractors. Now, anyone who has spent time around an oilfield knows that contractors often think they're hot stuff, like they are a cut above the regular crew. They come in, do their bit, and then they are gone. Our shop, which usually holds about half a dozen of us, suddenly tripled in population. One of these contractors, a big fellow with a loud voice and an even louder sense of himself, let us call him Duke, strode in carrying a party-sized JBL speaker. It looked like a black brick, almost the size of a small cooler, and you just knew it was going to be a problem. We were all working heads down when over the top of our quiet country radio, his speaker blasted to life. An admittedly decent work playlist started, a mix of hard rock and some fast-paced rap that got the blood pumping. My tastes are pretty varied, so it did not bother me too much at first. I just reached over and turned my own small radio off, figuring I would not want to live in a sonic remix land all day. I am not one for confrontation, so I decided to be friendly. I walked over to Duke, introduced myself, and we talked a bit about the job. Eventually, I pointed at his massive speaker and jokingly asked him if he took requests. He just laughed, a booming, dismissive sound, and said nope. It was not a huge deal, I thought. It was a decent playlist after all. But that was the first crack in the foundation of our shop's peace, and I could tell it would not be the last. His arrogance was clear, and it rubbed me the wrong way, but I let it go for the moment. A few hours later, the constant thump of Duke's music began to grate on some of the others. Raul, one of our younger laborers, a kind and hardworking man who had come all the way from the Philippines to make a better life for himself, went up to Duke. Raul is a quiet guy, always respectful. He simply asked if Duke would mind turning the music down a little, explaining that he preferred the regular radio. What happened next boiled my blood. Duke came unglued. He started yelling, a stream of angry words, and then it turned ugly. He launched into a racist tirade against Raul, telling him to get bent, using words that were foul and absolutely disgusting. Raul just stood there, his face red with embarrassment and hurt, and then he quietly walked away, back to his workstation, looking completely defeated. That was it for me. This would not do, not in my shop, not to one of my crew. My initial attempts at being polite had failed completely, and now the problem was much worse than just loud music. It was about respect, about basic human decency, and Duke had proven he had none of it. I felt a surge of helplessness, knowing that confronting him directly would likely just lead to more trouble, perhaps even a physical fight, which I did not want to risk, not when my job, my livelihood, depended on staying out of trouble. I needed a different way to fight this battle, something subtle, something that would hit him where it hurt, without me getting my hands dirty. I felt that deep, frustrating feeling of injustice, the kind that makes your stomach clench. All seemed lost, the peace shattered, and Raul's dignity stomped on. I pulled out my phone, my mind racing. I figured I would just open my Spotify app and connect to my own little Bluetooth stereo to try and drown out his noise, even though it was a futile effort against that monstrous JBL. But as I scrolled through my app, a tiny little detail caught my eye on Duke's playing screen. Jams enabled. For those who do not know, Spotify jams allow multiple people to contribute songs to a shared playlist. A little spark ignited in my mind. Duke could broadcast his music to everyone, assuming total control, but he had left an open door, a vulnerability. I tapped the screen, joining his jam session without him even noticing. My heart started to beat a little faster. I added a song that was fairly similar to his current heavy rock playlist, something that would blend in. It played. He did not notice a thing. That was when I felt a slow, grinchy grin spread across my face. I realized I could play mind games with this man, turn his own weapon against him. This was my chance to solve the problem, not with fists but with cunning. I thought about the oilfield, about the kind of men who worked here, and I remembered 2 important things about the culture. First, oilfield workers are usually very straight, very traditionally masculine, and any implication otherwise is practically grounds for a fight. Second, they generally only listen to very straight music. That means hard rock, some heavy metal, some rap, even a bit of electronic dance music, but definitely no pop and absolutely positively no girl bands. This was my leverage. My fingers flew across the phone screen. Every few songs after one of Duke's loud, aggressive tracks would finish, a completely unexpected tune would start. First, it was the Spice Girls, their voices singing about Zigga Zigga echoing through the shop. Duke's head snapped up from his work. He looked around, a confused frown on his face, then he angrily marched over to his speaker and skipped the song. He probably thought it was a fluke, a weird algorithm suggestion. A little while later, after another one of his heavy metal tracks, a burst of NSYNC's Bye 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 filled the air. This time Duke actually stomped his foot in frustration, yanking his phone out to change it. He was getting annoyed. I could see the other contractors starting to glance at him, some of them chuckling quietly. Then I stepped it up. A K-pop group, some loud, high-energy song with a driving beat started playing. Duke let out a roar of frustration, throwing his wrench down onto the concrete floor with a clang. He changed the playlist entirely, thinking he had solved the problem. Oh, how wrong he was. I had joined his jams on that new playlist too. For hours, I kept dropping absolute straight-up kryptonite into his music rotation. It was a slow, steady drip of torment. After a pounding metal track, it would be Britney Spears. After a gritty rap song, it would be some boy band from the 90s. Duke would fume, he would yell at his phone, he would kick at his speaker. The other contractors, who had been laughing at him initially, started actively giving him hell. "What's with the girly music, Duke?" One of them would shout. "You feeling soft today?" Another would mock. His face grew redder and redder with each passing pop anthem. He was trapped in a musical purgatory of my making, completely bewildered, unable to figure out how his carefully curated tough guy playlists kept getting invaded by bubblegum pop. He thought he was losing his mind. He accused the other contractors, he even accused his own phone of acting up. He just could not wrap his head around it. After about 5 agonizing hours of him raging in confusion, glaring suspiciously at everyone around him, Duke, finally utterly defeated, marched over to his speaker, yanked out the power cord, and turned it off. The sudden silence in the shop, broken only by the hum of the machines and our quiet country radio from the corners, was sweeter than any symphony. It was complete poetic justice. Raoul, working nearby, caught my eye and offered me a small, grateful smile. The rest of that day, Duke was quiet, his face still flushed with a lingering mix of anger and humiliation. He avoided eye contact, especially with me. The other contractors kept up their teasing for a bit, but without the speaker blaring the evidence, it eventually died down. Duke and his crew finished their specialized job a few days later, packing up their tools and machinery. When Duke walked past my station on his way out, he did not even glance my way. He just kept his head down, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. The shop slowly returned to its normal rhythm, the familiar country music filling the background once more. Raoul was back to his usual cheerful self, and I often saw him giving me a nod of silent appreciation. The feeling of righting a wrong, of defending a good man from a bully, sat deep in my chest. It was a quiet triumph, but a powerful one. A few months went by, and things were back to normal. Then another specialized job came through, and guess who showed up with the contractor crew? Duke. He looked a little older, a little more worn, but it was him. This time, though, he did not walk in with his massive JBL speaker, not even a small one. He carried a pair of basic work earbuds, the kind that block out noise, and he kept them firmly in his ears all day. He barely spoke to anyone outside of his crew, and he certainly never tried to play music for the whole shop. It was clear he had learned his lesson, a permanent reminder of that day when his own arrogance became his undoing, all thanks to a subtle twist of a playlist. I sometimes catch myself humming a random pop song at work now, a little private joke to myself, knowing that sometimes the quietest revenge is the most satisfying.